Episode 85, New Disney Plus and MCU Heroes. Welcome to the Visionary Variety Podcast, where we cover cool stuff like photo, video, film, books, and technology. So switch on your brain and enjoy the show. Welcome back to the podcast, listeners. This episode, we're going to be chatting about the new characters that are going to be introduced into the MCU and to the Disney Plus TV shows coming up very shortly once Disney Plus comes online. We're super excited because we can't get enough of the Marvel superheroes. Maybe we're getting MCU fatigue. I don't know. We'll see. But in this episode, we've got a special guest with us, a new friend of mine, Joe Soliz. Say hi.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you so much for joining the episode, Joe.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me on.
So Joe Soliz has a YouTube channel. Joe, you want to plug that? Tell us a little bit about that real quick.
Of course. Yeah, our YouTube channel is Pop Culture Geekery. And you can get to it by typing in popculturegeekery.com. It'll actually take you straight there. We do movie reviews. We cover like conventions, geeky events, comic books, movies, toys reviews, just about any corner of the geeky culture. The only thing I'm missing is video games, but there's plenty of people who do that one. So
sounds familiar. I mean, you do toys, we don't. We do video games and you don't. So we're kind of trading on and off. Everything else sounds pretty similar. Awesome. Well, can't wait to check out your channel, and I hope you get some new subscribers from this mention here.
Me too.
Also on the episode, we've got with us Angela Brock.
Hello.
We've been missing you. It's been a while since we've got to have you on an episode, so this is good.
I know. It's good to be back.
All right. Well, let's get started. So I believe Disney Plus is going live on November 12th. Is that right?
Yes.
And Netflix and all the other services are going to be crying in the corner that night because I feel like there's going to be a lot of subscriptions. I mean,
yeah, Netflix is already crying. They've already lost, I think it was 130,000 subscribers or something. I just saw it.
Oh my gosh.
There's cable cutters and there's Netflix cutters.
Yep.
I was looking at their lineup and I was trying to look for something amazing coming out in November and I didn't see anything. I'm just like, Netflix, you're dropping the ball. You got to combat this. Like, you do something big, you know, like if they had Narnia lined up in time, like that might have helped a little bit. Something, I don't know. But yeah, we'll see what happens. So I'm tempted to just cancel my Hulu, actually. We don't really watch too much Hulu. And it's like $12 a month. So I'm thinking of cutting that.
Well, it's going to be part of the package. You can get Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN for like $12 a month.
That's right. So, but there's ads without Hulu. I think that's the ad Hulu, which I don't know if I can stand that or not. I'll see. But that's a pretty good deal. What services do you guys subscribe to right now?
Netflix and Hulu, just for me right now.
Ooh. Yeah. What about you, Joe?
Yeah, I have a little bit of everything. So I've got Prime, I've got Netflix, I've got DC Universe Online, got Crunchyroll for my anime. Got
it's part of the job, right? It's a job expense.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
Write it off. Awesome. Yeah, I've got Netflix, Hulu, and Prime Video. So I actually don't watch a lot right now because I'm just so busy and my nighttime stuff is filled up with editing and, marketing, stuff like that. I don't really have a lot of time to watch stuff like I used to, which makes me kind of sad. There's some good shows coming up. We've talked about them in previous episodes. A lot of fantasy stuff coming out in the next year or two. So I'm going to have to cut back on my editing and watch some shows. All right, well, let's get into the Disney Plus and MCU heroes that are coming up. So the purpose of this episode was when we covered the MCU phase coming up soon in previous episodes, I realized there was a lot of characters I was not familiar with. There is the Eternals, Shang-Chi, Miss Marvel, She-Hulk, Kate Bishop's new Hawkeye, and Jane Foster, things like that. And I'm not a comic book guy. I didn't grow up reading the comic books. So there's a lot of characters that are going to be new to me. I know they're not new characters, so I'm not saying these are new people, but new to the TV screen and, big and small screen. So I figured let's do an episode. Let's do some research. Let's do some homework and, do a little episode and cover what are the backstories of these characters? What do they do? What are their weaknesses? What are they like? So that when the shows come out, we will have a little bit of a backstory, at least from the comic book versions of the characters. And, for the comic book readers out there, and I've picked up on this, the Marvel movies and some of the shows have followed loosely some of the comic book storylines. We'll probably get into that as well. But, I feel like understanding the origins of these characters from the comic book world will help us to kind of maybe speculate and enjoy the shows a little bit more. So, all right, well, let's get into it. I'll go first. So the character that I picked was Moon Knight, and the only thing I knew about this character when we did the previous episode about the Disney Plus shows coming out was someone had said offhandedly that Moon Knight was Marvel's ripoff of Batman. And I'm
Oh my
thinking,
gosh.
all right, you know, the each company kind of has very similar well, not very, but just one very similar characters, you know, between the two. Like actually, I see more similarities between Batman and Iron Man.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, but it is kind
Mm.
of fun to say, okay, what is Marvel's version of this, or what's DC versions of her? And you can do that loosely. But yeah, someone had said Moon Knight was like the Batman of Marvel. So I looked into it and I found some really interesting stuff. So let's just get started with the origins of Moon Knight, the character. It was created by writer Doug Moench and artist Don Perlin. And the first comic book that had him in it was in 1975. The title of that comic book was Werewolf by Night, number 32. Apparently, werewolves were a big thing. I don't know. So in this comic book, he first appears actually as a villain, and he's hired by other villains to kidnap someone. But he actually turns against his employer and fights alongside the good guy. And, you know, kind of turns a little bit, but he's got some shady origins that you don't really know about in that very first issue. And honestly, he seemed to be kind of a throw-off character. Like they didn't intend on, you know, making this guy a big deal. He was just sort of a villain to put in here to make the story work, and then they were going to get on with, you know, the rest of the issues. But in later comics, they brought him back because I think it was the artist or the writer. They liked him so much. They said, hey, we need some more of that guy. We need some more of that Moon Knight guy with a white suit. And brought him back, and they actually recast him as a good guy. And it's kind of funny. They sort of like retconned what happened in the first, you know, issue of him. And they said, well, he was actually a good guy, but he was undercover working for the bad guys. So yeah, they sort of backstepped that. And so they flipped him around. So he's a good guy. The character's name is Mark Spector, or one of his names is Mark Spector, because you'll soon learn he has quite an issue with different personalities, or rather different identities. So Mark Spector is the son of an American Jewish rabbi in Chicago. That's interesting. And he was first, as an adult, a heavyweight boxer. Then he went to the Marines, he retired, and he became a mercenary for hire. So Mark has a lot of awesome skills. He can basically kick your butt in like 10 different ways. So he's a smart guy, you know, kind of like the Batman character. He's got a lot of cunning and wits and strategy and things like that behind him. Fast forward, he is on a job in Egypt, and he's kind of, he's a mercenary. So I guess he's protecting or maybe transporting this doctor who's doing archaeological dig stuff in Egypt. They find a bunch of artifacts, including a statue to some god called Khonshu. And there's another mercenary there alongside him, and he kills the doctor because the other mercenary wants to take everything for himself and get rich off of it, right? So he kind of just botches the whole job and tries to get out clean with all the good stuff. Well, Mark Spector is not having it, and he fights the bad mercenary and he beats his butt. So Mark Spector is basically like an inch away from death. And yeah, they're in this like uncovered temple. Some cult members who still worship this god Khonshu come out of nowhere, take him to a temple, which I'm assuming is also hidden and secret. And Khonshu speaks to him after he dies and basically gives him a second chance, sort of like a little bit of a Spawn, a little spin here. And he says, I'll give you a second chance of life if you become my avatar to Earth. So yeah, kind of gets possessed by this god deity called Khonshu. So that's kind of the origin of his powers, or his, you know, mysterious backstory. Fast forward a little bit, he goes back to the States and he becomes vigilante, you know, fighting crime and doing all the good guy stuff. He decides to make some alternate identities to distance himself from his mercenary past. I guess he wants to get a new start, you know, kind of just leave the past as the past. And so he makes up a few different identities. One of them is a millionaire entrepreneur, and because he's got a lot of money, like he's got money from, I don't know if it's the Egyptian job or other stuff. He's got a ton of money, similar to Batman. And yeah, and then he makes another identity later, which is a cab driver, because he also wants to stay in touch with the street and the crime and things like that, because he's still doing crime fighting. Something else I came across that was really interesting is that the Egyptian cult, can contact him psychically because of that connection through Khonshu. So that happens at one point, and they bring him back and they re-equip him with, you know, new gear. He also gets a suit made out of adamantium, which is interesting. So yeah, kind of a different, like, I feel like this character origin is really, really different from all the other MCU characters. Wouldn't y'all say?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's one of those, you know, they didn't have a plan for him to begin with. So it's like, let's just cobble together what we have.
Scrounge together some ideas you never used for anybody else and throw it together. Yeah, pretty cool. There's also in the comic books, there's some time travel involved. So at one point, I don't know how or why, but he goes back to 2940 BC to save the Avengers. And he also joins the West Coast Avengers. So I'm assuming that's who he's going back to help. And he learns that Hawkeye in 2940 BC has designed a bunch of projectile weapons, which are the weapons that he was equipped with in current day. So it's like we got some weird time travel paradox stuff going on.
Mind blowing.
Yeah, like Hawkeye went back, made some cool stuff, left it there accidentally maybe. And then the Egyptian cult members find it and say, oh, look at these cool weapons. And they give it to Moon Knight. I don't know. So that's pretty wacky. And he, of course, has superhuman strength, speed, and reflexes. Don't they all, right?
I know, right?
And the level of his power is connected with the phase of the moon. So there's some kind of moon stuff going on there. Concerning the bigger MCU universe, there is some interesting little hints that may have been dropped in movies that may have, kind of some breadcrumbs to be picked up by a future Moon Knight movie. The first of the two is in Winter Soldier. There's a reference to a TV anchor in Egypt, and it's mentioned along with the likes of Stephen Strange and Bruce Banner. This is before a Doctor Strange movie came out, of course, or it was even announced, I think. So they're kind of mentioning, superpowered individuals that may cause problems. And there's this random TV anchor mentioned in Egypt. So kind of strange. Maybe that was a breadcrumb for Moon Knight. Maybe not. Later in the Civil War movie, there's a map of catastrophes that are being attributed to the Avengers. Basically, that was all about who done it. Like, this is your fault. You guys got to get with the program here. And there's something in Cairo, Egypt on the map. So kind of makes you say, Something else interesting I came across while doing some homework for this was that Kevin Feige actually would love to have Keanu Reeves play Moon Knight in a movie. This was, I guess before the TV show was official with a D23, announcement, but that would be awesome. Would you guys like to see Keanu Reeves in the MCU?
I mean, it'd be cool to see him in anything.
Anything.
Any sort of
Yes, please.
I just want him to show up as John Wick. That's all I need.
Yeah, Shield.
Yes.
Shield contracts him.
Oh man, that would be awesome. Actually,
Great tie-in.
Yes, it's like the memes where they go tell Thanos, or that Thanos killed his dog, and so he goes after Thanos by himself.
Dead. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see Keanu Reeves come in as Adam Warlock. That would just make my day.
Yeah, I've heard people talk about that. That might be
Just
interesting.
his persona of being the coolest guy around just fits with Adam Warlock being like one of the most powerful characters.
Just as long as he grabs the Infinity Gauntlet and says "Whoa," then I'll be happy.
That'd be so great. With a TV show coming up for Moon Knight, I'm really hoping that it's going to start fresh, start with an origin story. Because I feel like a lot of even Marvel fans, maybe even comic book fans, are not really familiar with Moon Knight. So I think it would be great to just do a fresh start from the very, very beginning, get a really awesome season 1 origin story, then season 2, kind of, getting in like the sophomore year thing of superhero vigilante stuff. And then maybe 3, get into some deeper, bigger world stuff. If it does successfully enough, to have 3 seasons, hopefully it does better than Iron Fist and doesn't like go.
I actually attempted a Moon Knight series. He's had 8 of them, according to what I'm looking at here. So over the course of the many years he's been out, but he just never sticks.
That's too bad.
I tried the one in 2006, and it was only because artist David Finch was on it, who ironically 7 years later ended up drawing a Batman title. So
oh wow, funny.
And when you see his version of Moon Knight, it's basically Batman. He even gives Moon Knight a moon-shaped, basically like the Batwing, But I was like, he's just going for it. He's just making this Batman. So. But that was just the art that pulled me in. It was not the character, so they're going to have to work pretty hard with a lot of these characters, I think, to build them up. We're basically got an entire crop of Guardians of the Galaxy style characters.
Yeah.
Where Marvel's just going to have to just do a good job, tell the stories, and then win us over like they did with those guys.
Yeah, I'm hopeful. I hope they learned a few lessons from the Defenders and can kind of up the quality and up the consistency rather with these new characters, especially because they're so out of the blue. Like the Defender characters are decently well known, especially Daredevil. Most people knew about Daredevil already, so that wasn't out of the blue. But these characters are kind of B team, C team. So we'll see what they do with them. I'm hopeful. Okay, I'm a big prequel guy. I love prequels. I love origin stories. So there's a lot going on here. And it was kind of weird with the Tom Holland Spider-Man movie to not get an origin. But at the same time, who doesn't know his origin, Right. It was fine without an origin. But I want to see some really good, actually shot in Egypt, actually have Egyptian actors that would really make my day for this show.
So the next one we have here is Eternals. So kind of like I was talking about Guardians of the Galaxy, not really being known too much. These guys are probably the least known of all the announced ones, I would say, because even for me, for being a comic book fan, like I knew of the Guardians of the Galaxy, but as far as the Eternals, I've heard of them, and that's about the extent. Never really had a reason to check them out or anything. And it's funny because they really seem to be not the focus, but they did get a big reveal at D23, where they had the whole character lineup. And so I really just feel like, this is the new kid in school. Let's make him go to the front of the class and introduce himself. That was the feeling I got with the Eternals. But the basics about this group is they're one of the late, great Jack Kirby's creations. He had actually originally tried to do his comic called New Gods over at DC, and it got canceled. Right. But he had a story he wanted to finish telling, so he basically came to Marvel and retooled it to the Eternals. Yeah. So they debuted way back in July of '76. So they're one of those ones that they kind of got a little bit of a reboot. Neil Gaiman did a series for them.
That was really cool.
A few years back. So I'm assuming that his run is probably what they're going to focus on. Basically, with these guys, I know you said you like origin stories. Yes. Well, theirs...
Laid on me.
Did you ever watch the movie Prometheus?
Yeah, like
the
10
one
times.
That's supposed to be the prequel to Alien.
Yeah.
So their origin sounds very much like that, because basically instead of the engineers, the characters, the ancient characters are called the Celestials, which we actually got a cameo of in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. You can see them briefly destroying a world whenever Ego is showing him different worlds.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, because they have a very distinct look to them, so it was definitely them. But basically, they came to Earth millions of years ago. They experimented on humans at the time, and from that was born two groups, which was the Eternals, and then their counterparts were called the Deviants. Which, if you're going to name a group the Deviants,
they gotta be bad.
How do you expect bad things not to happen?
It's like the bad guy villains always have devious sounding names. They always sound like bad guy names. Every time.
Yeah. Just because you're a bad guy doesn't mean you're a bad guy. So. But so the Eternals are pretty much near godlike and perfect, to whereas the Deviants were like genetically deformed. They just were the failed experiments, basically. So these two became rivals.
Nice.
And the Celestials, they channel the cosmic energy that flows through the Marvel universe. So that's what they use to give the Eternals their powers. And they have, just like we were talking earlier, kind of the basic powers, which is super strength. They have telepathy. They can levitate. They can shoot beams of energy out of their eyes. They can teleport. They can manipulate matter. So I mean, they're kind of just, it almost feels like that, creation you'd make in school. You're like, oh, this is the best superhero ever.
With this power, and with this power, and this power.
Yeah. But they also have a pretty unique ability. Whenever they're in some sort of dire need, they can form what they call the Unimind.
That's cool.
Which is where they come together and they transform into a single entity. Now, they don't do it Power Ranger style. So
You're the shin. I'm the arm.
Yeah. But apparently this entity possesses extreme intelligence and abilities that can help with any situation. So basically, it's their Deus Ex Machina. So
yeah. Do they actually merge into one being, or are they separate but they have a connection to each other?
I think they're just separate, have a connection. Unfortunately, I didn't find any art that showed it, so it was all just reading.
That brought to mind the show Sense8. Did you guys ever watch Sense8?
Oh no, but I've heard of it. I always wanted to check it out. It's been on my Netflix queue forever.
It is so underrated. It's such an incredible show. It's by the Wachowskis. Need I say more? But man, the show was so cool. There's a lot of sex though. I mean, it was, not a lot. There's a few moments of sex that's way too sexy sex. It's like, okay, we need to skip this.
I mean, it's just like the orgy scene in Zion in the second Matrix.
There is orgy scene. Every season finale is a freaking orgy. I'm like, what is happening? The show was so amazing. So a disclaimer. But in Sense8, there are basically kind of groups of people that are born on the same time and same date. And for whatever reason, some select children have a psychic connection to each other. They can discover and, nurture as they grow up into adults. So this group of 8 people and the main characters of the show, they all have different, strengths and abilities. And it's really cool because there's moments in the show where they will psychically, kind of connect with each other. And cinematically, they'll be the other actor. Like the Asian girl will suddenly be where the guy was in France, and he needs to get out of a sticky situation, and she knows kung fu, and he doesn't. So, in the show, you see the Asian chick like beating someone's beating the crap out of them. It's actually the guy, but just visually, they have the female actor there, and it's kind of like he's channeling her skills, and they do that back and forth in really, really interesting ways.
That's awesome.
And I just love how they shoot those. They're really cool. So anyway, that came to mind. Just a little reference there. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's definitely been on my to watch list forever.
Yes.
So the only weakness that these guys have is that they are programmed to not attack the Celestials. So if they do anything
nice.
that will threaten them, they literally shut down.
It's like a slave safeguard.
Other than that, I didn't find anything else. So, so if you really need to defeat them, apparently you need to turn their attention towards the Celestial, which, those guys are already causing problems as it is. So you're going to have double issues.
So the Celestials are the most powerful beings or that we know of in this MCU?
I mean, I know there's a ton of like godlike creatures in the MCU. These guys are definitely up there. Yeah. I mean, in the original Infinity Gauntlet, they got involved in the battle against Thanos. So that in there got crazy. Thanos, who was actually retroactively later revealed to be an Eternal as well, only because he was apparently created by the Celestials or something like that. I didn't go too far into that, but yeah, it's a shame we'll never see the actual Infinity Gauntlet battle because it got insane.
Man, I need to read some comics.
Planets at each other. Literally throwing planets at each other.
Oh my gosh. Star Wars.
Yeah.
Sounds like I need to catch up on some comics. I use Overdrive to borrow stuff from my library, and it's an app, and you can get comic books on there. And I'm thinking, hey, I need to do some history, do some homework.
Oh, yeah. When I was short on money, that I had to go to my local library to keep up.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Man, I get about a free audiobook every week from there. I would have spent so much money if I actually paid for that stuff. Cool. Well, I had read that Thanos was a deviant. Is there like different stories for that, or?
No, you know what? I think I read something similar too, where it's talking about how he was created, but apparently he has the look of the deviants partially. I don't know. I learned so much about comics in the early days when I started collecting, and then as time goes forward, they change so much stuff that you just kind of, it's too much to keep up with.
Yeah, I mean, every 10 years at least, some new amazing artist and writer steps in and says, "Oh yeah, well, watch this." Just kind of says, the middle finger to the previous guys and starts everything over again. So that does it kind of hard to keep up with it all.
Yeah, so I just try to keep everything basic.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, the cast for the Eternals is quite an impressive one. I mean, they got freaking Angelina Jolie, which is kind of weird to think of her being in an MCU movie. I don't know. I like her, but that's a big name.
Well, I mean, she was in that movie Wanted, which was based on a comic book.
Oh yeah.
And then she plays Maleficent now for a second movie here soon. So
yeah.
She's definitely no stranger to odd roles.
She may be a nerd at heart.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing the drama between all the different Eternals play out. I'm assuming some of them have agendas, kind of in the middle gray area of being good and bad. We'll see.
Yeah, there's definitely some drama to be had.
All right. So I want to talk about She-Hulk for a little bit. So I guess we've all kind of heard about She-Hulk, right? Yeah. She's probably one of the more better known of all the new cast of heroes we got here. But all I really knew about her is that, she's a female counterpart to the Hulk. She's green. She's not as buff as him. And she wears a purple swimsuit for some reason. That's basically all I knew.
I mean, let's face it. A woman the size of Hulk would be terrifying. I don't know. I just can't picture that.
Me neither. Even though it may seem kind of realistic in the comic book world, it's just downright scary for readers. So I don't blame them. But I dug around in her backstory, and I finally found out what her deal is. So her name is Jennifer Walters, and she is Bruce Banner's cousin.
Huh.
And she's a lawyer, And how she got her powers is that she got shot by a crime lord and ended up in the hospital, real bad condition. So she needed a blood transfusion. And the only one who was readily available to give her one, same blood type, was her cousin Bruce Banner. So a little bit of the Hulk ended up getting into her as well.
Just a little bit, not all of it.
A little bit. And that's true, because otherwise she would probably be just as scary as he was. She's a little bit more toned down. She's kind of like more of an Amazonian sort of lady than an all-out monster like the Hulk. And she's able to keep her personality in check, unlike the Hulk, and her intelligence. The only real difference in her personality is that she's a little bit more assertive, I guess you would say. So, as far as her powers go, she's got super strength, of course. But what's kind of interesting about her state, and I don't know if the Hulk is the same way, but as she increases her strength in her normal human form, her Hulk form increases in strength exponentially. So I thought that was kind of neat.
So she can work out.
I don't know. Have we ever seen Bruce Banner work out? Because I feel like that'd be kind of weird.
He's a lazy lab guy.
Man, he could be super strong, maybe, if he'd actually lift some weights for a
Maybe Professor Hulk has to work out. I don't know.
Professor. Yeah.
What would he work out with?
I don't even know.
Hey, you saw the Incredibles movie? You saw Mr. Incredible used a train.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's
Was he bench pressing it, or what was he doing?
Yeah. Yeah, he was doing bench press, squats, everything. He was juggling it.
Yeah, I'm sure some good train company will volunteer for that willingly. Yes, no problem there. And of course, she's got the standard superhuman speed and agility, stamina, reflexes,
Classic.
healing abilities.
Everything needed to make a cool fight scene.
I know, right? Can you just imagine like having this super strong hero, but they don't have reflexes for nothing, so they keep getting hit constantly and they're super clumsy. That would be hilarious. I really want to see that now.
I didn't get that one power.
So her first appearance was in the Savage She-Hulk book back in the 80s, and ever since then, she has been a member of the Avengers, the Fantastic Four. I don't know how that works, because there should be just 4 of them, but whatever.
The Thing was gone for a while when she did it.
There you go. He joined the West Coast Avengers, which Moon Knight was a part of.
Oh, man. They like swap places there. Interesting. Heroes for Hire, the Defenders, Fantastic Force, and S.H.I.E.L.D. So she had been in like in every single freaking Marvel group as far as I'm aware. That's pretty impressive. And one little funny thing that I read about her as well, and I hope they somehow translate this in the TV show, but I doubt they will, but it'd be super cool, is that in the earlier runs of her comic, she was known to break the fourth wall occasionally.
Oh, fun.
Kind of like how Deadpool does and stuff. So I think that'd be really funny to see, but I doubt they'll be that goofy with her, but who knows?
Now, remind me, the origin of the Hulk's power in the current rendition of Hulk, because we've got like 3 movies of him. Where did his power come from? Because I'm getting the other early movies mixed up.
Oh, man. Yeah.
I can take it if you don't remember.
Yeah, I just remember some sort of science experiment going wrong or something.
So his thing was he was experimenting with gamma radiation,
Okay.
and so he got exposed by it, and it triggers the side of humans that has the rage or whatever, and so that's why it gives them all those extra powers. In fact, because of the way the MCU kind of panned out, I mean, you can still watch the Incredible Hulk movie with Edward Norton. Yeah. But when we rewatched it leading up to Endgame, we just left it out, and it still works when they meet him in the first Avengers movie. The only thing is, kind of like Spider-Man, you just have to kind of get the bits and pieces of what happened.
Yeah.
If you do it that way.
So the Edward Norton movie was uncanonized, right, from Marvel?
No, they still count it.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so that is his origin, just a different actor. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, was the Edward Norton movie the one where his father was doing experimentation on his cells to prepare him, or that led him up to the transformation? Or was that the very first movie?
No, that was the Ang Lee movie that was just simply called Hulk. That was before the MCU.
Yeah.
Although technically, you could start with that one because it does show the actual transformation, to whereas the Edward Norton one, it just shows a montage at the beginning of the transformation, but that's not canon. And nor would I want it to be, because
I did like the idea of his dad doing weird stuff to his cells, and that kind of like prepared him, not on purpose, but it led to the transformation with the gamma rays later. Like, I like that origin story. Other than just like, oh, gamma rays made me do this, and it's never done it for anybody else ever in history. It's kind of out of the blue. But interesting. Yeah, the mess of the Hulk movies. Is that everything you had for She-Hulk, Angela?
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot.
I had listened to another podcast talking about her, and they said in the comic she has an increased sex drive. I'm thinking,
Yeah, I read that and I decided to leave it out.
Well, I'm going to bring it up.
Maybe if she was a Netflix show, then they would go that route. But
yeah, they would.
Good thing it's not on HBO. Ooh.
Let's move on to Shang-Chi. He was created by writer Steve Englehart and artist Jim Starlin, who's Jim Starlin is also responsible for Thanos. And they first appeared in Special Marvel Edition number 15, a random issue that came out in December of 1973. He actually debuted a full year before Iron Fist did, which is
good to know.
Yeah, I feel like Iron Fist is the more known one out of the two. But Shang-Chi in the comics, he's the son of an immortal Chinese criminal mastermind.
Wow.
Whose name is, are you ready for this? Yeah. His name is Fu Manchu.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Why?
Yes.
Why 70s? Why?
Man.
Yes, because back then. So his father tricked him into thinking that his criminal activities were for honorable reasons. And then later on, Shang-Chi learns the truth and his father actually becomes his foe. So Fu Manchu is actually his adversary through most of the comics.
Interesting. A little Darth Vader action there.
Yeah. Now, the interesting thing about him versus Iron Fist, because I don't 100% understand Iron Fist, his abilities, but I understand he does have some sort of powers per se, to where Shang-Chi has no superpowers. He is literally just a master of martial arts and weaponry.
Nice.
And so he basically has all the weaknesses of a normal human, although he has beaten superpowered opponents.
That's cool.
Using his chi, which apparently is the main thing that he has learned to use. And so if they take that aspect, then it's going to make it really interesting, because the mystical side that happened in Doctor Strange, to me, that kind of established that. It's almost like and I love how they came up with the fighting style in that, where they go into the little pocket universes to fight.
Mirror universe. That's cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't anticipate anything like that for this, but I'm hoping they come up with something unique, because I didn't think of anything like that for Doctor Strange. So, in the movie, though, Fu Manchu will be replaced by the Mandarin, which is the real Mandarin.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Not the one that we met in Iron Man 3, who was a fake.
The actor.
Yeah. And he will be his father and foe in the movie.
Cool.
And obviously, all the the racial stereotypes that comes with that name, Fu Manchu. That's the reason why they're just going to sweep that under the rug and never bring it up again. But at the same time, it allows them to correct the mistake of, Iron Man 3, because obviously the writers thought they're being clever by giving us a fake Mandarin, but a lot of people didn't like that. So I actually skipped Iron Man 3 on my rewatching, because I didn't appreciate that. So.
Now, I'm a little hazy. I vaguely remember bits and pieces of Iron Man 3. I know there was that old washed up actor guy they got to use to be the visual of this supposed terrorist named Mandarin, but it was actually like that rich European dude behind it all, right? And he hired the actor.
Yeah, but the real Mandarin, I don't think actually comes out in that movie at all.
Right, that's what I'm saying. The name was there, but not the true.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they were creating videos, and he was acting in them, and they were done very Al Qaeda style.
Yeah, Osama bin Laden type stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so this one's going to be interesting, mainly because of the no superpower thing. So I'm very curious to see what they're going to do with it. There's not really any specific storyline that I could find that they would focus. Well, I mean, other than the thing with his father, that's probably going to be the main focus. So.
I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with the martial arts, because in all these like 20-something Marvel movies, there is good fighting. Like all the choreography is good. I'm pretty picky with my choreography, being martial artist for quite a few years, so I can usually pick out like when there's something like overtly very inaccurate or lazy choreography or just bad. But I like the fights in all these Marvel movies. But I feel like this movie is gonna have fights, like legitimate martial arts techniques being used and styles and things, unlike the other movies, because none of the characters are overtly martial artists in the Avengers. I mean, maybe Black Panther and a few other characters, and Black Widow. But like this guy is the master of kung fu, so I'm excited to see what they do with that. You mentioned not being too sure about Iron Fist's powers or origin, and with him, he goes into an alternate kind of a pocket universe. And there in that place, there is basically these powerful monks that have mystical powers, and they protect the earth, I think it was. And so he happens to go into this gateway and goes into the other realm for like 19 years, and he learns the martial arts and he becomes like the chosen one kind of, and he has power over chi as well. And it's really, really well done in the show where his hand like glows from the inside. It's really cool visual. And he's able to control and channel his chi, which is like his personal, spirit energy. And sometimes he loses it when he's not, like balanced or whatever, kind of the Buddhist stuff. He's out of his funk. He can't summon this chi. He can't use it effectively. Whereas there are other Iron Fists before him that were apparently able to channel it so well that their whole body glowed with chi energy. And in the show he never gets to that point, but he can only do it with his right hand.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I remember the glowing hands being a thing in the comics. So
yeah.
But I think those guys are all any characters I think that came out on Netflix are tied up till like the early 2020s. So, maybe later on if Shang-Chi is very successful, if we get a sequel, you might get an Iron Fist in there. But
yeah, they have fought in the comics, I've read. And it's funny, I think it was a Reddit thread where I was trying to find who is stronger. And it just was 50-50. All down the line, it was 50-50. And everyone was citing the other guy was stronger, and this is why, and here's why, and blah, blah, blah. I am very excited to get some Asian representation, finally. And a big part, there's a little bit with Doctor Strange. But that's about it. And now we're going to hopefully get a full Asian cast. I think that would be great. I don't want any whitewashing with this, so we'll see what happens. Okay, my next character that I want to give a little backstory to is the Red Guardian. So this guy is going to be, I'm assuming, one or the main villain of the Black Widow prequel movie. So the Red Guardian, his name is Alexei Shostakov, and this is a straight up Russian dude. I mean, he is a KGB agent, he's a pilot for the Russian military, and he's skilled in all kinds of hand-to-hand combat. And it looks like in the comics, he uses a disc off of his belt buckle. It's called the belt buckle disc. And I'm thinking Captain America. Anyone?
It's like the knockoff version.
Yeah, he's basically the Russian version of Captain America. And he is actually a super soldier. So the Russians got the super serum that was used to make Captain America. They used it on this dude, and boom, they've got a Russian super soldier of their very own. So the first appearance of the Red Guardian was in Avengers issue 43, and that came out in August 1967. Like I said earlier, his name is Alexei Shostakov, which I think is hilarious because if you've seen Stranger Things season 3, David Harbour, who is going to be playing Red Guardian, mind you, David Harbour is in Stranger Things, and there's a character in season 3 called Alexei, and he's a Russian. It's just so weird. Like, I'm pretty sure this Red Guardian stuff was like nailed down by Marvel and Disney like a year or 2 or 3 ago.
Yeah.
And then season 3 of Stranger Things happens to come out afterwards, probably. But it's just weird coincidence. And of course, in Stranger Things, David Harbour's character is fighting the Russians, and now he's a Russian named Alexei. So
There's
weird.
a possibility he might be in Russia as well. I like to think it's just Hopper.
Oh, snap. He went through the portal.
And he's also been Hellboy, who was completely red, and Russia is red, and therefore, no.
Oh my gosh.
He's been with the Americans, he's been with the Nazis, and with the KGB. You do not want to mess with David Harbour.
Oh my gosh.
So a little bit of his backstory is Alexei Shostakov was born in Moscow, and he was the husband of, are you ready for this? Are you sitting down? Natasha Romanova.
Oh my, spoilers. Oh no. Wow.
So both he and his wife became agents for the Soviets. The latter became a Black Widow, which we're going to find out there's a bunch of other Black Widows in the same program. And whereas Alexei became a test pilot and a KGB agent, and then he trained to be a counterpart of Captain America just for the Russians. This is Black Widow's ex. Definitely going to be some intense drama going on there.
Yeah.
Hopefully some awesome fights. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to seeing some more prequel. Finally, Black Widow gets a movie. I've been waiting for it for like 10 years.
Right.
And it's going to be great.
All right, so next up we have Miss Marvel. So she first appeared in Captain Marvel number 14, which just came out in recent years. It was just in August 2013. So she's probably the newest
yeah, the youngest.
All the characters.
Yeah.
Yep, the newest, the youngest. And her big claim to fame was that she was Marvel's first Muslim superhero.
Interesting.
So on top of that, and I have to say, unfortunately, I have never gotten a chance to read any of her stuff. I know she also did come out like in an animated project that came out not too long ago. So I am very curious to finally see the character. What I read, and I kind of knew this, I kind of found this out before, but obviously by her name, she admired Captain Marvel. And so basically the way she's described is she's kind of this generation's Spider-Man in the sense that, you know, she's a teenager dealing with powers, kind of having to live through high school, you know, that type of deal. So apparently she's really resonated with the young audience. And
cool.
But her origin is where it gets a little iffy in the sense that I don't know where they're going to take this, because her origin is tied to the Inhumans, which for those who don't know or probably blocked it out of your mind, the Inhumans had a horrible, the Inhumans had a horrible show by ABC, because I don't know, after the Spider-Man deal. Yeah. Well, I think it's also because they were supposed to get a theatrical release. But apparently after the deal with Sony and Spider-Man happened, they were pushed to a TV show, which of course was horrible.
And I knew it was going to bomb. When I saw that first trailer, I was like, this looks awful. This looks so thin and cheesy and fake. It's like, no, I have no interest in watching this.
So I know that, you know, even in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they did talk about the Inhumans a little bit.
Cool.
So, you know, they're still there. They exist in the MCU. It's just a matter of eventually they'll be rebooted or soft rebooted, you know, into the MCU.
Cool.
Because they have this substance called the Terrigen mists, which gives abilities to anyone with Inhuman DNA in them. So apparently Kamala Khan is her name. Apparently Kamala had Inhuman DNA. So when she got exposed to the mists, she became what they refer to as a polymorph, which is basically her powers are a mixture of Mr. Fantastic and Ant-Man.
How convenient.
Yeah, she can basically stretch like she can stretch like Mr. Fantastic. She can grow large or small like Ant-Man.
Wow.
She can also apparently morph into different people.
Well, Miss Mary Sue right here.
Yeah. And
what can't she do?
She does have a healing factor in her normal form.
Oh, goodness.
Apparently, if she stops using her powers, she can heal, but it does take a toll on her. So So I think for this character, it was a good idea to start her off with a Disney Plus show instead of a full-on theatrical debut, which, you know, they'll still do. From what I understand, a lot of these shows, the characters will not necessarily all graduate into their own features, but will be put into other movies that are being featured. So, for example,
that'll be really
I
interesting.
Be surprised if she ends up in Captain Marvel's sequel.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, she's pretty interesting. Like I said, I pretty much know about as much of what I just dictated to y'all. So so she's another one that I'm just curious to see, you know, how is it going to go when it comes to Disney Plus.
Man.
I have to admit, I was very wrong and confused about Miss Marvel in a few episodes ago, where at the end we kind of did some speculating, and my erroneous speculation was that Monica Rambeau would grow up to be Miss Marvel, because I had like who Monica Rambeau grows up to be, which I think her name is Spectre or Spectrum, something like that. I had that mixed up with Miss Marvel, because the Marvel word connection. I was like, oh, she's going to grow up and be like her, you know, her student and be the next Miss Marvel, or the next Captain Marvel, but she'll call herself Miss Marvel. But I had it all mixed up. So, oops.
It
my bad.
With so many newer heroes. So.
Yeah.
And they do have an actress cast for an adult Monica Rambeau that's going to be in WandaVision. So I'm really interested to see what they're going to do with Monica Rambeau's character, who we affectionately call Lieutenant Trouble. I hope he goes by that as at least as a vigilante for a while. That would be such a great name.
Yeah, I think overall they're setting up a lot of other good things.
I feel like it's going to be weird at first, but it's going to be really awesome later. Seeing a TV character in the movies or get their own movie, like you mentioned earlier. Because with DC and with Marvel, there's always been this awkward disconnect, like this impassable gulf between a TV show and the movie world, in that the information and the show or the movies could be in the same canon, but you never crossed over. Like you never had the actor who played, say, Flash in the show be in, the Justice League movies. Like they always had different casting and sometimes even different canon. And same with Marvel. Like the Defenders were not in Endgame, which is weird. They were nowhere to be seen, and stuff. And now Shield is the only exception. I think Shield had some actors crossover, which is cool. But we're gonna have a whole lot more of that in Phase 4. I mean, we've got WandaVision, we've got Hawkeye. Like a lot of these shows are going to have the cast and crew from the movies, at least some of them, in the actual TV show. And now hopefully we'll get the reverse. We'll get some TV show people that started out as a show moving into the movie world of Phase 4 or Phase 5, or even getting their own movie. That'd be pretty cool. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's definitely something that was sorely missed. Yeah, we've argued, especially because the DC shows are so good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I would have loved to have seen a lot of those characters up on the big screen. But
yeah, I like their Barry Allen. It was great.
Mm-hmm. So these last few, we're just kind of give some overviews of them, because there's so many new characters that and that's because this is considered Phase 4, but it's actually not that long. I think it's just a couple of years long, because it's a mixture of movies and TV shows this time. I want to talk real quick about. So we have the Hawkeye Disney Plus series coming up, and it is going to have Jeremy Renner returning as Hawkeye. However,
Good.
I didn't know his fan club was here. But he's going to be doing kind of a passing of the torch story. Her name is Kate Bishop, and she actually debuted in Young Avengers #1 back in 2005, and she was ended up working alongside Clinton Barton in the comics, and she actually really looked up to him and liked the fact that he was, literally just a normal guy who was really skilled keeping up with all the Avengers. So that was her draw to him. And then I didn't get to see in the comics exactly how the transition happens, because I know in the comics they both still exist. Whereas in the show, he's actually going to give up being Hawkeye.
Yeah.
Which is, of course, actor Jeremy Renner's exit from the MCU. So, so this one, I love the setup. I love Jeremy Renner as Hawkeye. So they haven't settled on a Kate Bishop yet, but there's talk that Haley Steinfeld, who was in the Bumblebee movie, might be it.
Oh, interesting.
And I'm totally for it if that's who they go with, because I love her as an actress. She was so much fun in that movie, and I think she would do good. She could definitely carry the show after he leaves. So
in the opening scene of Endgame, when he's teaching his daughter to do archery, I was like, "Oh snap! That's the next Hawkeye. That's the next Young Avengers." And then it's not his daughter. I was like, "What?"
Nope.
Jeez.
Nope. Then he's like, well, I mean, after he fought for so long and hard, and everybody thought he was going to die in every major Avengers movie, he's like, no, I'm keeping my family this time. Nobody's going to become a superhero.
No, you will not. You will not fight for justice.
You're going to be a doctor. You're going to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
We also have the return of Natalie Portman to the MCU.
Yes.
As Jane Foster, which I was super surprised, because apparently she didn't officially return for Endgame. That was unused footage from Dark World. But,
loophole.
But she was, but she was at the premiere, so that was the first clue that something was up. But I always was wondering if they were going to go in this direction, because I didn't get a chance to read series, but I'm going to kind of give a spoilers alert on this, because it is kind of a big deal that happens in the comics. So basically, Jane Foster develops cancer, and at the time, I don't remember why Thor was not Thor at the time. I know there was a time when he became unworthy, because there was a title called Unworthy Thor.
Ooh.
So Jane was worthy, and she took Mjolnir, and she became Thor. but then they referred to her as the Mighty Thor.
Hmm.
But the thing was, the cool thing about the story is that when she was the Mighty Thor, the cancer did not affect her. As soon as she turned back to Jane Foster, she started dying again.
Oh
Oh no.
no.
So that was a super tragic but really cool idea that just tugged at your heartstrings, you
Yeah.
know. And I remember seeing some of the covers, you know, and it's the potential for a really good story. Now, I don't think they're going to do it in this first one, which is called Love and Thunder or whatever, because it's still Taika Waititi directing it, so it's still going to have a comedic,
Mm-hmm.
you know, bend to it. But at some point, they're going to have to work that in there, because that's the whole point of that version of Thor. You know, Jane Foster's dilemma, or whatever you want to call
Yeah.
it. It's just such a good setup. So I'm
Interesting.
super curious to see how they're going to handle that.
Cool. I had some questions about the whole thing of calling her Thor, Lady Thor, She Thor, Female Thor. Is it Thor is Thor's name? Like, is it
Yeah.
become more of a title now? Like, you can be a Thor, you can be the next Thor.
Apparently so,
I mean-
because well, it's not the first time it's happened.
Right.
They haven't used the character, but we saw his face in Thor Ragnarok on the building for the Grandmaster. It's an alien named Beta Ray Bill,
Oh, that's right.
and I know he was Thor for a while. So
Huh. He's an alien, right? He's not humanoid. Well, he's
yeah.
humanoid, but he's like a
Mhm.
bird head or something weird.
Huh.
yeah,
That's cool.
yeah. So it's one of those things. I read an explanation of it, but you know, as long as I know but they did make a point to say, you know, please stop calling Jane Foster the female Thor. She's the Mighty Thor. So
You're triggering the feminists. Please stop.
So definitely looking forward to that one. Don't expect that storyline. Like I said, in this first, you know, movie with her in it, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe there'll be hints of it.
I'll take anything with Natalie Portman in it. I love her. She's one of my favorites.
Yeah, same here. The last one is the What If show, which we'll be getting. I can never remember how to say his name. Is it Uatu, the Watcher?
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
The Watcher.
Yeah.
I just always called them the Watcher. You know, who we did see, you know, some of them also in Guardians of the Galaxy. But this show I'm super excited about, because I loved this comic series, because it literally is what it says. It would take a scenario that was known in the comics, and it would put some sort of spin on it, and then it would just usually just paint this really cool story. Like, for example, the first one they want to do, and these are all animated, by the way, is Peggy Carter. What if she became a super soldier?
It's awesome.
Instead of Captain America.
I hope they make her buff.
And yeah, you can find some what do you call it, designs for her already.
There's a recent release where it shows like a piece of art for each episode, and it looks really cool.
I need to see that.
And they are getting the original voice actors back.
Good.
That's all I had for that one.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Joe, for doing all that homework and helping us out with this episode. It's been great information.
It's being a nerd is a labor of love.
Yes, we know. Cool. Well, thanks again, Joe, for joining us, and Angela, thank you for jumping on the episode. It's been too long. We need to have you back on more often.
Yeah, no, for real. What's up with that? No, I'm just kidding.
No, it's our schedules. I mean, we had a bunch of photography
I know.
episodes, so that's not really a thing.
I know, yeah. I'm just giving.
Unless you want to give us some photography tips, you know.
Yeah, I can do that. How to be bad.
No, Joe, just as a reminder for our listeners, they can find you on YouTube as Pop Culture Geekery, right?
Yeah, just go to popculturegeekery.com and it'll take you straight to the YouTube show.
Oh, cool. It reroutes. Okay, awesome. Great. Well, guys, definitely go check out his stuff. Enjoy his content to kind of fill up the in-between time of our episodes, because we release weekly. Is that what you do as well, Joe?
Yeah, I try to get something out at least once a week, usually
Great.
towards the end of the week or the weekend.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to watching it myself. All right. Well, everybody out there, thank you so much for listening to this episode. We'd love to hear your thoughts about any of these characters or announcements or movies or shows, anything that we talked about, or maybe something we didn't talk about. Email us at tvvpodcast@gmail.com, or you're welcome to comment or message any of our social media accounts on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. We just want to hear back from you guys and get some feedback. If you guys have any ideas for an episode you'd love to hear about, maybe a movie review, a topic, a sci-fi, anything that, kind of goes along with the random themes that we do on the show, let us know. All right, well, thanks again for listening, and we'll be with you next week. If you like this show, be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app. You can also find our previous episodes there and listen whenever you want. We love to hear from our listeners, so if you have any comments or suggestions for future episodes, you can reach us at tvvpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and have a great week. Let me see. Nate, are you there?
I think he's stuck in Windows Update limbo.
He sent me the gif of a monkey throwing the laptop off the desk. Sliding it right off, just like pushing. Boom. Oh my God. I guess that means it's not working.
Oh man, that sucks.